Hey, this is a foreigner in the Philippines. Welcome. Good evening. Sunday. It's always my Sunday driving job, but it's also a time when I get the time to be alone, spend a little time in reflection, and I get to drive the truck alone. I also get to take an awful lot of people, too many people for my truck really, to carry, but I get the chance to take a lot of people to church and get them home as well. Well, which is a job that I enjoy, by the way. So I did as I usually do. Today I went into Taliban, and I go to my favorite restaurant. Actually, it's probably the only restaurant in Taliban where we enjoy the absolute modern luxury of one set of traffic lights. But I go and have breakfast there, and I'm usually the only one there, which suits me as well. So I get to look at the comments on my phone. They have Wi-Fi there, and it kind of works out fine. But today, coming back, it was a little busier than normal, so I get to see all of the things that the usual foreigner will be horrified by. I always tell you in my direct messages, when I'm talking directly really to people who are thinking of coming out to live in the Philippines, I always tell you that there is a terrific amount of adjustment to be made. First and foremost, you need to be able to be alone. You need to be able to be on your own resources, your own inner resources. And if you're someone who suffers from loneliness, it may well be that even if you find the most wonderful lady in the world, as you probably will, you may still find that because of the language barrier, unless you are like a friend of mine who is excellent at languages and picks them up in no time at all, you'd probably be like me and be an absolute Dumbo when it comes to learning Visayan. I spend so much time wondering whether I should learn to speak Tagalog and be able to look at the news and get international and national news, because that's all in Tagalog, and see the occasional movie, which is going to be, if it's a Filipino movie, it's going to be in Tagalog. Or should I learn Visayan, which is what everybody is around me is speaking? Fortunately for me, I count myself fortunate that I don't get lonely, even though there's a special kind of loneliness from being in a situation where you're the only one who doesn't speak the language. Now, you can forget the idea that, and I've heard this said when I was in the UK, when I was in the States, I heard it said, well, it's just rude if they can speak English and you can't, and they know that you can't speak their language, they should speak English for you. It sounds good, but it doesn't work out that way, because people are in their natural habitat. They're not going to speak, they're not going to struggle to speak a language which is not their first language. They're home. Something you have to get used to is that you are the foreigner. Of course, I'm talking to foreigners now. I'm talking to people who fully intend to come out. They've heard wonderful things about how friendly people are here, and that's absolutely true. That the Filipinos just seem to be the most friendly people. Now, we got quite a shock when we went to Hong Kong, even though a dear friend of ours, Stephen, who we call because we know several Stevens, we called our friend Stephen, Stephen of Hong Kong, or Hong Kong Stephen, and he's very happy where he is. Well, we found that compared to the Filipinos, the friendliness was nothing like it was in the Philippines. In fact, I remember saying, you know, if there's anybody out there planning on a dual visit where they're going to spend time in the Philippines and spend time in Hong Kong, go to Hong Kong first and then come to the Philippines, because if you go to the Philippines first, it will ruin you for how friendly people can be. So what are some of the things I got to run you through, because these are the things that were going through my mind today. Is, as a foreigner, almost no matter where you come from, your driving will be so much more disciplined, simply because the average foreigner has grown up sitting probably next to their father or in the back seat of their family car, and they'd been, even unbeknownst to them as a child, they have been conditioned to drive in a certain way. Now, if you're in America, and especially in California, in certain parts of California, like LA and San Diego, you literally cannot go out on the road and do anything without getting caught for it. So I can remember getting a ticket in LA because I didn't have the wheels on my truck turned into the sidewalk, and I got a ticket, and that ticket was expensive, $38 I think it was, or $36. If you got a back light out, you'll never make it down the road more than a mile and you'll be stopped. So when you come to drive in the Philippines, boy, you're in for a terrible shock, because especially well, I'm the most knowledgeable about living in Bohol because we've lived here for 7 years now, close on 7 years. So what are some of the things? Well, traffic coming from the right. So you're on the main, let's say that you're traveling along the national highway. Any traffic that's coming from a side road, from a dirt road on the side, from coming out of a drive, whatever, if it's coming from the right, it has the right of way. Now, does it have the right of way by law? No, it doesn't. But it has the right of way by the law of survival, because the traffic that is entering onto the main road, any motorcyclist, any tricycle driver will join the main road without looking, and they just come straight out. Now, if you see someone and you can see before they hit the road, just before you, if they're coming from the right, you are going to stop. Now, you'll be wrong, or they'll be wrong, but if you don't allow for the fact that they're not going to look, they're just going to come straight out, then you better get used to that's the common law. Let's put it that's the common law. The other thing that is very hard to understand is that when tricycle drivers are driving along after dark, so there are no street lights, certainly in Bohol, there are no street lights that we know of. In our part of our little paradise in Bohol, around the Taliban area, there are no side lights. I mean, they just don't exist. They may be trying in certain parts to get them up, maybe, but right now, to all intents and purposes, no side lights. So there's no road lights. You're traveling in darkness, and This means that the discipline of using your bright lights, your headlights on full beam is only applicable when the other person feels like it. Whereas you wouldn't do that in a disciplined country where people have been taught this right from the start. See, so what you have is you have a situation where people actually put their lights on. This is tricycle drivers. It's hard to understand. They have their lights on, and then if it looks as if they have their bright lights on and you flash your lights to, as a persuader, but please dim your lights, they turn their lights out. Go figure. I can't understand it and probably never will, but they turn the lights out and they pass you in the dark. Now, 60% of motorcycles that are driving at night do not have any back lights. It could be, might be less, maybe I'm exaggerating a little, but when you've had a few experiences where you've suddenly realized that you're barreling down on a motorcycle that may have 3 or 4 people on it, but no back lights. In fact, maybe no lights at all. This is in pitch black, no lights at all. So you have to think a lot more than twice before you overtake, because you could be overtaking and something may be coming toward you in their own lane as you overtake. You'll be on the wrong side of the road, of course, and then you'll discover that there's something coming with no lights. So it can be quite a shock. They're very, very skillful at riding, but they haven't received, there's no training. Now this is changing a little now, because apparently it's really quite expensive to get your driver's license. I've seen reports, I did see a rundown of someone who was writing in Facebook, and they posted in Facebook about the expenses of getting a license in the Philippines, and it was up in the 9 or 10 or maybe 12,000 pesos to do it. Can the average person afford 9 or 10 or 12,000 pesos to get a driver's license? No, they can't. Can a child of 8 or 9, I'm not exaggerating, drive a motorcycle and take his mother to work? Yes. Can a kid that young take his 2 friends on the back with him? Yes. In fact, the overcrowding on a motorcycle is usually after the number 7. That means 7 people on the bike. 7 people. It's common for 3 passengers, the driver and the passengers, and how they do it I'll never know, but they can take an adult sitting side saddle on the gas tank, and they drive with their arms around the person who is sitting side saddle, and then 2 more people on the back. So these are very difficult things to get used to. So you may have a powerful modern truck, Ford's, Nissan, Mitsubishi, Suzuki, all of these, Toyota, all of these vehicles turn out a modern, fast, almost sports-like performance to what used to be in my day, and they've got the road where they can actually, there's no speed limits that I've ever seen. So it's really down to the common sense of the driver of the vehicle. Now, if they're not used to having a vehicle, I mean, my truck has twin turbos. It's fast, but it is very controllable. It stops like incredibly. It handles, it has superior suspension and handling. So, and I come from a long line of driving experience. You know, I've probably in my life I've owned maybe as many as 50 cars, which for someone my age and coming from the West is not a great number of cars, especially when most of them were used second hand. I've only had a handful of brand new cars in my entire life. So I've ridden motorcycles and I've driven a lot. And I had lessons. And I was forced to obey laws, strict laws, speeding. I mean, now, no matter where you are in London, you know, you're on candid camera, and you might not be aware of the fact that you only just squeaked through that traffic light, and it's debatable whether you did squeak through, but you can get a note in the mail that shows you with your photograph and your car and the number plate and the speed that you were going at and the time that you went through the traffic light. So we're kind of used to that pressure of being watched. I don't know anybody, certainly in the London area where I lived most of my adult life when I was in the UK, I don't know anybody whose heart didn't sink a little if they spotted a cop car following them. They'd go, no. Now what do I do? Do I strictly obey the speed limit and have them pull me over because driving very very calmly there, sir. Everything okay? You know, and they can go through the car. They can check the tires. They can check, and if the tires are a little bit low, and they have their ways of testing for that, all by the side of the road. You get used to the kind of pressure that this brings when you're driving there. You can't drive too fast. You have to watch the speed limit. You can't behave badly. You can have a charge brought against you for, say, driving without due care and attention. Never mind the drunk driving, never mind having, certainly I believe in California, it's zero tolerance. You can't say to the cop, well, yeah, I've had a couple of beers, but I'm fine. No, you can't say that. See, so we come, as foreigners, we come and we think that the driving is what is to us common sense is not common sense here because there's no basis of training. So it's one of the things that you have to get very much used to, and it will be you that's in the wrong. No question about this. If you have an accident, you will pay. So here, very much, I did a U-turn when we had the bus. I did a U-turn. Now, I saw that there was a bike coming towards us, but here that's not uncommon to do the U-turn knowing that you are in full view with more than ample time for the person to stop. You do the U-turn and they slow in order for you to complete what you are doing. I think that he was not paying a lot of attention, and I did not allow for that. So by the time he stopped, he clunked into the side of our vehicle. Well, there was a little damage to our vehicle, nothing that we were going to be afraid of. We got out being worried about the driver of the bike, and his son was on there. We just said, we offered him money. We offered, well, sorry about that. We were doing a U-turn, and everything was handled amicably. We paid him, and he went on his way. And it was all handled. So it's different here. Another friend of mine was taken into the police station because he had also done a U-turn, and some kid on a motorcycle who was like, I think barely 14 years old, had come hurtling over the hill and hit our friend's truck. Now, he was quite badly injured. Our friend ended up paying a great deal of money, and the way that that was sorted out was not by going to court. He spent a night at the police station, and the next day the woman, the mother of the kid, came in. A certain amount of responsibility was had by either party. They agreed that the boy was a minor, didn't have a license, didn't have any insurance, and shouldn't have been driving. And my friend admitted that he was doing a U-turn. So you can see he paid a lot of money. Now with us it was only, I think, a few thousand pesos, but for him it was a lot more, and the threat of that is what hangs over you, rather than some cop in the side, pulled over to the side, who's got a one of these guns that can tell what speed you're doing, so it's different here. And the way that it is the way it is. You're not going to change it, and that's one of the things that you have to be aware of when you come over here, and that is that you are the foreigner, and you're not going to bring what you brought, what you've run away from. This is the irony. People are running away from a certain kind of lifestyle. Regulation, over-regulation, is what always comes across in letters that I get. And then they come over here, and it's as if they want to make the Philippines the same as the place that they've run away from. Never makes any sense to me. I'm trying to keep my videos a little bit shorter because my wife is begging me to do that. So I hope my little meandering it helps you in some way. If you're thinking about coming there, it's not a culture, calling something a culture gap doesn't handle it for the Philippines. The gap is not a gap, it's more like the Grand Canyon. Almost impossible to work out the way that they think. The way that people think in the East is so far removed from the way that people think in the West. And I always cite that example of the company that sent their best man out to make a presentation of everything that they did in their company, which was a top company. They sent their top guy out there. He had a 2-hour presentation, or 2.5-hour presentation, where he covered every single thing. He had the computer, the screen to back him up, everything that he needed. And the Japanese, he went to Japan, the Japanese sat in front of him in a long line, everybody from the CEO down to the art director and the sales manager, and they listened absolutely intently while he did his presentation. And at the end of it, they said, we didn't understand. Can you do it again? Different way of thinking. This has been A Foreigner in the Philippines. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.